on two young black men last year when they were meeting in a Starbucks for a business meeting, called the police on them and had them arrested for no reason whatsoever. She was later terminated by Starbucks. Well, now Shannon Phillips is filing a racial discrimination suit against Starbucks. Oh, yes, she is, bitch. Oh, yes, she is. Shannon alleges that if she were black, she would have not gotten fired. Well, Shannon, honey, darling, have a seat. Because, girl, if you were black, you probably wouldn't have called the police on these two black men. And furthermore, you know, let me say this. There are certain social norms that black people grow up with that white people do not, right? Shout out to all my white friend listeners. Hey, y'all. But like, can we talk about this for a moment? And I'm not saying all of y'all, because I know a lot of white people who grew up with common sense, you know, like their parents popped them whenever they got out of place or let them know, like, look here, okay, little Becky, we're going to go into this store. You're going to act right because I don't have time for your shit. Or your nana was like, okay, Big Mama was like, girl, we don't play that shit. Some of y'all grew up that way. Many of you didn't. So you have these situations where socially you do things because it becomes second nature to you. Now, I'm not saying that in judgment. I'm just saying Shannon called the police because she felt like she was in danger. She felt like everybody else around her was in danger because two black men were in the atmosphere. Now, that might sound really strange to y'all, but to me, it don't sound strange. It doesn't sound strange that maybe this white person didn't really feel a comfort level with two black men because every encounter that they may have had with black men, whether it be in person or on television, has been negative. So they felt threatened. Now, I have learned that, you know, I don't know if you white people know this, but when white people enter the room, I feel threatened as well. I get it. I do. I feel like I'm under duress, bitch. I do. Sometimes. Okay? Now I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Just like how you feel a level of threatedness, because we have to talk about these things. Just like you feel a level of threatedness, I do, because I feel like my guard can no longer be down. I have to be hyper aware of where I am, who I am, what I'm doing, what I sound like, how I'm moving, how I'm being perceived. I'm on. I have to be on. You know what I mean? And so that onness lets me know that if I am threatened, I have to speak in a particular way. Now, you guys don't know that onness. For you, you know that, like, if you feel threatened, call the police. Now, I don't know what that feels like. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it feels like to feel threatened and feel this comfort level to know that they're here for me. You know? And unbeknownst to a lot of black men, I feel like really, in a lot of cases, I can look to other black women to protection before I can look to a black man. I mean, that's just real talk right there, you know? But I will say this. She is suing for millions of dollars. And it is sad to me that the lesson that she got out of this was not that, oh my God, the fact that I overreacted, I had to pay in some sort of way, you know, just because I assumed something based on skin color. She didn't learn anything from it. All she learned was that fuck you and fuck the fact that you think racism is bad. I'm going to show you that racism is bad because you're going to pay me. I'm going to follow this case and report back to you because I want to know how this turns out. If Starbucks pays her a dime, I promise you I'm done with Starbucks. I promise you I am. I'm going to be a D&D girl, honey. Not just in my titties, but in my cup. D&D. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I remember when I gave birth to a seat at the table, I had all kinds of questions. Where was I going to record my episodes? How was I going to make money off this? And also, how was I going to get my podcast on a bunch of different apps so I can make it more available to people? Well, the answer turned out to be real simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free. That's right, you heard me. It's 100% free. And it's so easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. So all that means is time to make this shmoney, honey. That's right. Get paid for your podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now, reading this ad to you. Okay? Listen, if you're like me, you work one place, you live another place. You may not even know people who have access to a studio, or even if you do, you don't have money for studio time. So if you've always wanted to record your own podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start and join me and a diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. All right. So, have you ever had a shoe conundrum? Yes, bitch, a shoe conundrum. Like you had a pair of shoes to go with your outfit, but you kind of wish you had a different pair of shoes. But bitch, who has money and time to be spent in? I live in New York City, bitch. I can barely afford the air. So you know where I go to get myself a pair of bomb-ass shoes that won't break the bank or sacrifice fashion? I go to Glam Stash. That's right, the online shoe boutique for the glamorous girl in you. That's www.glamstash.com. Follow them on Instagram at the Glam Stash. Baby, go get your feet and hit the street. Glamstash.com. Tell them a seat at the table sent you. All right, y'all. Now listen, we've been setting the table for the past couple of weeks with everything from intention to finding out the cons and confidence. But this week, I wanted to kind of set the table with a different tone. I wanted to talk to you about just anxiety. And, I talked to you earlier in the episode just kind of about the roller coaster week that it's been for me. And, I am somebody who I've been very forthcoming about the fact that I do suffer with depression and anxiety. And, a lot of what I try to bring to you guys is a level of mindfulness, and being mindful has definitely helped me, my journey of being mindful, because I don't believe that mindful is a state that I can just exist in. I think it's a journey. It's an ongoing journey for me. But, marrying that to my mental health and marrying that to mental health, period, just the mindfulness and the anxiety and the depression, I know that a lot of times when I am triggered for an episode of anxiety, it normally starts as a mental trigger, an attack of the mind. It's almost like my mind goes into a buffering state where I am literally just rehearsing a problem with no solution over and over and over and over. And it's like nothing's happening. I'm just kind of stuck in this state of flux. That's the only way. Whenever I've ever spoken to my therapist about, and shout out to my therapist, because listen, let me just say this. I learned so much. And, one of the things that my therapist always says to me is that she likes the way that I describe my emotional state of being. And whenever I am in flux in terms of anxiety, And as I speak to you even about this, my whole being is actually kind of shaking. But you know, whenever I ever have an episode of anxiety, I can only describe it again as my mind kind of in a buffering state of being, of just kind of rehearsing a problem with no solution. And, here's the thing about my anxiety is that, sometimes you can be so hurt about what's to come that you've lost all assimilation of today, if that makes any sense. So, in the fluctuation of my life and kind of not knowing where I'm going next, in terms of my professional life or even the work that I do, even with the podcast, not really knowing, I feel like, my life is in this holding pattern, if you will. You know what I mean? You ever been on a plane and they can't land? And so you guys are just in a holding pattern. You're kind of just flying nowhere, really. You're just dropping off the fuel because, you can't land. So what are you going to do? I kind of feel like that's where my life has been and where my mind has been, in a state of being of just kind of in a holding pattern. And so, the one thing that I know about anxiety for me is, when the enemy can't stop my blessing, he certainly knows how to come for my mind. And that's the thing that I wanted to share with you is that, if you are someone who suffers with the mental health issues, whether it be anxiety, depression, whatever it is, my spiritual walk has often been what has allowed me to kind of see a little light through the darkness of whatever has been going on in my life. So I've always, I've grown up in the church, but beyond that, though, I know God. You know what I mean? And whether you are Muslim and you know Allah, or you are Rasta and you know Jah, or you know Buddha, or whatever it is that you call the external being that you connect with, the higher power that you connect with, I call mine God. And I connect with him. I know him. I know him because I have seen him work in my life. Like, I've seen it, like, I've seen it. You know what I mean? Like, I see him. Like, I know him, so one thing I know is that the enemy has always been after my mind. And I know that. I've always known that, even as a child, because I've always possessed the knowledge of the level of creativity that I've had, if that makes any sense. I've always known as a child that I was a creative, like, even if I couldn't articulate it, I knew that I had a flair about me. You know what I mean? Like, I saw other kids and then you know what I mean? Like, if you know that I knew that I had this thing about me. But then I also got to an age where I knew that God was real in my life and the enemy was also real. And so because I knew that the enemy would be after my mind in a particular way the first time I had an anxiety attack. The first time that I knew I wasn't just sad, that I was depressed. I knew that the enemy was real. And I knew then that, okay, so that the way that you're going to fight this is that the enemy that's coming for you is coming to kill, steal, and destroy. So if he can't kill me, he's going to steal my joy. And if he can't steal my joy, he's going to destroy my mind. And he's going to use anxiety and depression, which is the two methods that he uses to get to me. And here's the thing about the enemy, right? So, okay, I know that he can't kill me. You can't take my joy. You can't take, he will steal from you, but he can't steal anything that's mine. And I know that any